Hey Sharon, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Oh my gosh, I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Yeah, tell us who you are and what you do.
Okay, my name is Sharon Robustelli, and I'm the founder of Ten3 Public Relations. We're based in the garden spot of the world, Brooklyn, USA. And we really have a mission to elevate female founders and to help them just raise awareness for their either products or services, or also just elevate their authority within their industries.
Awesome. And how did you get started in the agency life? Are you an accidental agency owner? Do you work with agencies? How'd you get started?
Yeah, well, I would say I am a, let's see, out of spite agency owner. I worked with
Oh, I never heard
agencies
of
my,
that one. That's good. I like that.
yeah, I've grew up in the agency world. I'm one of what I've learned is a few PR professionals who actually have a degree in public relations. So I am doing what I went to school for. And I started out in entertainment PR and did that for almost 10 years. And then this is typical of me. I would say I find something, I kind of figure it out, and then I'm like, okay, I figured that out, and it's either for me or not for me. Even if it is for me, I want to go further. I want to pivot somehow. And so I started out in entertainment PR, and it actually was not for me in that I wanted to do more strategic work. I wanted to work on long term planning. I did not see myself as a publicist who just went out and tried to get press on a project for somebody really, really famous. And then the rest of the time, tried to keep them out of the press. That wasn't doing it for me. So I moved into consumer PR, and that was where I really found my passion. So I have been doing it ever since. And as of 2019, I've been doing it for myself with my agency, Ten3 PR.
What drove you away from working for an agency to start your own? And I'm asking this because there's a lot of agency owners listening that don't want their employees to drive those employees away to go start their own agency. I mean, if they're destined to create their own agency, great, go do it. But was there a driving factor when you were working for the agencies that were like, screw it, I'm going to do it myself?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I say I am an out of spite agency founder. And it's sort of what happened for me was as I said, I truly did grow up in agency life, starting out as someone's, assistant. And this is back in the days where your assistant shared your office and answered your calls. So I was very close to it from the very beginning. And as I started to go and become more senior and more senior and more senior, I reached the stage of being a managing director. And a managing director is the person who runs a hub of an agency. So in my case, I was running the New York office of a very large agency, and I couldn't see myself being that person or in the position of the person above me. And it was my first time really getting like that full look behind the curtain, something that I didn't realize in middle management, you don't really see uh, how decisions are being made. You think you do because you're there executing and you're, being a good soldier, but you really don't. There's another level. And once I got close to that level and I was sort of helping my boss prepare for board meetings and hearing how real decisions that impact real people's lives were being made, I kind of found myself at an impasse. And I was like, I don't know if I like the way this is being done. And so it made me kind of angry because I saw what was being considered and what was being prioritized, and it was definitely not the team all the time. And sometimes it wasn't even the client, it was just all of the bureaucracy. And I was like, you know what? This is not for me. So that feeling of like injustice drove me. It really drove me. I left that job, and within 6 weeks, I like had my plan, had my mission, had the website up, sent the email out, and let people know that I was, starting out on my own. And I haven't turned back. 5 years later, I'm still doing it.
It's awesome. Is there any like what was kind of the injustice? Like were they Was it just the internal politics to get things passed? Is that what was aggravating you rather than going, look, this will be great for the team, this will be great for the clients, or what was it?
Yeah, it was two things. Definitely the internal politics, for sure. But the second thing, and I think the more impactful thing, was what the internal politics gave life to, and that was wasting time. We wasted so much time trying to deal with managing a P&L, so much time trying to look really smart and strategic, so much time putting in all of the layers that big clients pay a lot of money to agencies, and they don't know that that's part of what's happening. Basically, when I started Ten3 PR, what I told clients, I didn't really have a focus of like, this is what we do. Like right now, I know my focus. I support female founders, right, and help them elevate their brand services and their industry authority. Clear. But when I started, I was just like, I would like clients to be at an agency that does not force them to carry 10, 20, 30 people on their team, most of which who do not touch their business, but yet we've got to figure out things for those people to do so they can continue to have a livelihood. So then that's when you get into creating all these layers. It's going to take us 3 months to develop the strategy. It's going to take us another 2 months to develop your key messages. Then we're going to get your approval and ask you more things about your approval. Before you know it, you've had a client paying you for 6 months and you have not delivered a single thing except smart talk and a lot of smoke and mirrors.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that angered me.
And I think that angers a lot of people too. I saw that when I worked for Arthur Anderson for a brief stint, is like, there's all these people. And then to feed this machine, you have to do things like, if you really start looking at it, be like, if I was the client, I'd be totally really pissed off of going, you're charging me what? And be like, this is how all the businesses start. There's got to be a better way. Like, it's the typical lead in from the Shark Tank. It's like, hey, I did this and I got to be a better way. So let me pitch you, my $1 billion idea. But I think that's really helpful. And I think there's a lot of agencies that are listening that started that way as well. They work for some of the big guys and were like, this is stupid. Like, I can do it so much better. I could do it a lot more efficient. And I think we all learn. The best thing I learned from when I sold my agency and I worked for the agency that bought us was this: if you hire the right people, you have to worry about demotivating them. You don't ever have to motivate them, but I think you were demotivated. Is that right?
Yeah, demotivated would be a good way to put it.
A nice way to put it.
Yeah, it wasn't unmotivated because I was motivated enough to build a a better mousetrap, but I was definitely demotivated to do it in the way it was being done.
If you stayed there, was there any chance to fix that within that organization? Or were they just too big?
I don't think there was any chance to fix it from my perspective. And as I say this, let me just say that this last experience is not any of the agencies that I mentioned when you asked me where I used to work. Okay, so it's not any of those. But I don't think there was a chance to fix it because it had gone so far. It had gone so far, and there were opportunities to fix pieces of it. And when I saw those opportunities falling away and not being heeded, that was, now talk about demotivation. That's demotivating. When you present a solution and you see it just being not heeded in any way because it doesn't serve, as you called it, that monster, it doesn't feed that. So that's when I really knew it's not going to happen here. It's not going to happen here. So why don't I start from nothing and see what I can build?
So When you started your agency, within the first year, what was the biggest aha moment that you had?
Mm. Within the first year, I would say the biggest aha moment was I finally resolved that struggle I had between my value and my time. I think for me, I did not understand, or maybe I hadn't internalized the fact that I'm good at what I do, right? And because of that, I thought if someone is paying me, if I ask them to pay me a certain amount, I've got to spend a certain amount of time doing these things because that's how you grow up in the agency. Well, you've got to do your timesheets and then you're billing clients hourly and your rate is based on how much time. The number of clients you work on is based on how much time you spend per client. So I had to shift that mindset. And when it finally came to me, I realized that the value is not in my time, it's in my experience and it's in my knowledge. And that was a big turning point for me.
Yeah, I have a shirt that says "Pay me for my expertise, not my time."
Yeah, exactly. And what I say, and I need to get a shirt that says this, I say, just because it's easy for me doesn't mean it's easy.
Yeah. What was the turning point? Because, or what was the turning point to figure out the value that you provided? Like, how did you, like, mentally, how did you figure that out? Because there's a, you know, a lot of times to our agency mastermind members, I always go, dude, it's time to raise your prices. Like, you've been charging this price for how long? Like 10 years? Like, you've never raised your prices? And they're like, well, I don't know if I'm worth it. What was the turning point for you to figure out your value?
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that because I hear that too from people. I mean, I work with founders, and a lot of what I do is if we're doing an authority marketing campaign, part of it is I have to sometimes, especially with female founders, unfortunately, I have to talk them into understanding that they deserve to be called an expert. That you
Yeah, I
are
no one likes the
absolutely,
word expert though.
people hate the word expert.
Yes.
People hate the word. I'm not an expert. I'm an
Or
authority.
guru. Oh my
Who
gosh.
really is an expert? But what I say to them is like, if you're not an expert, who is? If you've been doing this for X number of years, you've been successful, you've got a track record, what would be more expert than that? So I basically embrace that. And I'm not saying they have to go out and put that in their bio, Sharon Robustelli, PR expert. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying I have to think that there's a lot of people who can't do what I do. And if I weren't the best person for the job, I wouldn't be in the job. Now that doesn't work all the time, but that's how you have to think, even sometimes before you have the receipts,
Yeah.
because otherwise you're waffling and you're not serving yourself and you're not serving anybody else.
Yeah.
So that's how I think about that. Now I want to know what your question was.
Yeah, well, I mean, I I used to think I would charge just on time, right? And then I remember someone broke it down. I remember them telling me this story of this refrigerator salesperson or sales repairman. The refrigerator broke. The guy comes, spends 2 seconds, fixes it, and gives him a bill of like $1,000. And the person's like, dude, it took you like 2 minutes to fix it. And he goes, well, let me break down the invoice for you. Here's $100 for turning the screw that took me 2 minutes. Here's $900 of the past 30 years of knowing which screw to turn the fastest. And so what helped me, as soon as I heard that, I was like, okay, cool. It's an expertise thing. But it's also, you have to understand what's the value or what are the results that you're delivering for your clients. So when I would do a website for $20,000 back in the day, and then that person would make millions from it. I'm like, I'm getting ripped off. Like, that's a bad deal for me. Because I remember one time a project manager came to me and was like, Jason, how are you charging 200,000 for a website that only costs us 11,000 to build? I'm like, and she's like, how do you sleep at night? I'm like, really freaking good. And then I had to explain to her, but she never could get over that hurdle. She didn't last very long because she felt like we were ripping off the client. We're like, no, no, no,
Mm-hmm.
it's a value thing. Like, that client coming to me spending 200,000, if I pitch them a $10,000 website, they're going to be like, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm going to lose that deal. Now, I may not be
Mm-hmm.
ready. That's the biggest debate too, a lot of times, right? I was talking to someone on, we were going back and forth on LinkedIn, and I was like, do not put your pricing out on your website. Like, do not do it, because you're going to
Mm-hmm.
scare away the big guys. And they're like, well, if you're charging 10,000, you're not ready for $1 million. And I'm like, exactly right. You're probably not ready for them, but it will give you something to think about and going, how do I get ready for that $1 million account? And then you can get there. So
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on that?
I like the way um, you're talking about the difference between expertise, leveraging your expertise, and just being paid or charging for your time. There comes a point where if I charge for my time, I would go broke because it doesn't take me a lot of time to do a lot of things that are like the meat and potatoes of the business. So I can't possibly do that. And what I share with my clients is I'm going to work with you and provide you with sound strategy. I can even give you a roadmap at the outset of our relationship and our first conversation that tells you exactly what I'm going to do. If you find value in that, then let's go. It's not about how many hours it's going to take me to do those things. Do you see that what I'm laying out for you will help solve your problem?
Yep.
Once you see that, then that's the end of the conversation, and then we start working together. So
Yeah.
I've never once gone out to a pitch and laid out how much time, unless I was at a big agency and that was part of what was being asked from the big corporation because they want to make sure that they're getting value for their money.
Yeah. And any of the people that are going to start off with, I want you to track your time and I want time reports and that kind of stuff, I'd always say to them, you're asking the wrong question. You're looking at it the wrong way. And you personally don't value your time and your expertise, because yes, you can get it cheaper. If you want to find someone that's going to charge by the hour and break down the hours, that's going to require you to manage and be more of that general contractor, which then that takes you away from the other stuff. That's why you're coming to an agency. Like, you're coming to an agency to save you time and solve your problem the fastest. And if you want that, that's who we are. If you don't, perfectly fine. Go try them out. But when you come back, I'm not going to say I told you so, because, hey, you learned your lesson. But I'm not going to give you a discount because you wasted money.
Right, exactly. You wasted money, energy, time, so many other things, gave somebody false hope. All of that.
Yeah,
All of
I was
that.
like, I'm like, I can't tell you how many, how much money I would have if I got a nickel for every time someone said, "Hey, I should have went with you first off. What kind of discount? Because I blew half my budget." I'm like, actually, I'm going to charge you more because our rates went up. And they're like, what?
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, we could go through this dog and pony show again 6 months later. My prices are going to be even more. You're going to waste time on that. So what is it? And literally they'd kind of be like, all right, yet.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what's interesting? I started doing this new process where well, you know this from agency world, is you spend a lot of time, agencies spend a lot of time and money pitching the client, right? Like, I've been like the consultant to the consultant to the consultant, where they hire a consultant, the consultant hires me, and we go in to spend this pitch. And I can't imagine how much money they're spending to go in and do this and prepare for these pitches. And you go in with like all of these people, all of this deck, you've rehearsed it, you've got the research team to pull together some charts and graphs that you are only there because you don't expect someone's just going to believe you. So you've got to like get some pie charts and things. And now what we do is we say we just tell clients we don't do that. That's not the pitch process that we will participate in. Instead, this is what we do. We will have a conversation with you. The conversation is going to be a 1.5 to 2 hour conversation. I call it my Elevate and Illuminate session. And it's where I learn all about you. I'm going to ask you like 50 questions about you, about your problem. From that, I'm going to deliver to you a brief that tells you exactly what you need to do. Exactly. And at the end of that, I'm going to say to you, here's what needs to happen. You can do it yourself. You could even find somebody else to do it, or you could hire us to do it.
You
Okay. If
charge
they're
for
going to
this?
say, and I charge for it. I
What do you
charge for it.
charge for it?
I charge $500 to book the call.
Yes.
And you can't book the call without paying. So I've got it all set up in Calendly. And before that, we've maybe had a 15, 20-minute conversation to see if you're even someone that I can help, if I'm someone that you want to work with, if you're someone I want to work with. And the upshot of that call is, okay, so now book your Elevate and Illuminate session.
I love it. We're made from the same place, I guess, since we're New Yorkers too, I guess, right? It's like we don't want to take the bullshit. But
Uh-oh.
yeah, when
And
companies
Long
would come
Islanders
to
at that. Being from
yeah,
Long Island, we even more don't want to take the bullshit.
that's right. But I would do the same thing. I would actually charge a foot in the door offer, something very small, because if someone's going
Mm-hmm.
to pay you, they're 20 times more likely to pay you again. And I always tell people, in order to figure out what that first service is, and I like it's a consultation with you. The one thing um, I like how you branded it as well, because they know, like, especially that you called it Elevate. They
Mm-hmm.
know what they're gonna get. The only thing I didn't like is when you said brief. Like, here's a brief, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would change that. Because most people, when they do a foot in the door, especially when they're starting to charge for a service that they used to give away for free, they think they
Yeah.
need to over deliver, which is a big mistake. I look at it on a kind of a graph of one line is kind of the value to the prospect, right? From
Mm-hmm.
low to high. And then on the other line, on the horizontal axis, I look at it as easy or hard. And that's more for the owner. Most people think, let me give you an audit or a report. I'm like, well, that's easy for you to do, but it doesn't give much value to the prospect. But
Mm-hmm.
like on the top right quadrant, the one that's the easiest to do, that provides the most value, is what you're doing, is a 1 hour, 2 hour consult that you brand, that you're getting to know them. And then I always tell that prospect is, look, there's 3 possible outcomes. You'll love the plan, you'll go execute it yourself. Number 2, you'll love the plan, but you want to work with us, which is the most common. Or number 3, you don't like the plan, I'll give your money back. So there's nothing for you to lose. And then you're pulling them to you versus you're pushing on them. It makes the
Mm-hmm.
service really easy. But if you can just think of like these 4 things, like, what's the perceived value, to that prospect, the speed of execution for your agency, because you don't want to waste a ton of time. What's
Yeah.
the logical next step, right? Does it lead to your next kind of project? And then, can you co-create? Can you make it feel like, I think, how old am I? I just turned 47. I remember the show like Columbo, but he was
Mm-hmm.
always kind of like he was this investigator, and he would always, like, the people he was like interviewing, he would always lead that witness. And so that's kind of what I would always do on these foot in the door offers. So it would always make them feel that we co-created this together versus like, me just going, you need to do this. And like when you get through
Mm-hmm.
all these things, at the very end, I'd be like, You like the plan? Of course you do, because you feel like you created it. And be
Yeah.
like, "You want my help?" "Yeah." "Oh, yeah, I'd like that help." Like, you just built trust with them. You took away, like, any risk. They're not thinking that you're trying to trick them anymore, because that's a big decision, like, when these other agencies are coming in with this huge pitch deck and all these teams, I'm
Mhm.
like,
Yeah.
they're spending millions of dollars too. They're
Oh yeah.
morons.
Oh yeah. They're spending millions of dollars. They're figuring out the theater in the room, like all of these things. Yeah. Yeah. And I agree. I mean, the other thing too that it does for me is I'm now not resentful that I've had to go through all this to potentially not get the business.
Yeah. And you'll see if they're serious, and you'll see how they work with you. Because
Yeah.
if they're shitty to you now, they're definitely going to be shitty to you later on. And I,
Right.
I tell the prospect, like, look, you're going to pay me for this process. And if I don't like working with you, or you don't like working with me, we're just going to part as friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Exactly.
you just walk away and you're like, okay,
Yeah.
good. Like, you don't feel taken advantage of. Like, and I've only, in 20 years or 25 years, I've only had two people ask for their money back. One
Hmm.
was a scam artist. The other, they were Russians. They didn't speak a lick of English, and they had a Russian translator. So I don't know what I think I had a bad translator. So, so we'll see.
Yeah. It's
But
funny though, because you do learn a lot from that process because you're asking them to trust a process that may be unfamiliar to them. But
yep.
what I hear most as feedback from that is they enjoy the transparency of it. I'm
Mhm.
not trying to confuse them with a bunch of jargon and like some beautiful slides. Like I'm a mean keynote slide creator, but that's not the point of this. And they also like that in the very beginning, I basically tell them this is your current situation. And that's where I tell them basically what they told me. And they like that. They like that they actually can see that they've been heard. And
Yes.
it makes a big difference to start a relationship out that way versus start a relationship out based on having carted out your most senior people in this whole dog and pony show who then disappear. And then it takes 6 months for them to actually have anything happen. And another thing that I was thinking about when I came into being an agency owner versus running someone else's agency is that my job started to become just like unruffling the feathers of all these pissed off clients because they were just angry because they felt like they had been duped and they felt like they were wasting time having to police where their money was going and how it was being spent.
Exactly. Well, this has been awesome, and I really enjoyed our conversation. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you think would benefit the listeners listening in?
You know what? The one thing I think would be really beneficial is I know a lot of people wonder, like, is this something I can do, should do? Like, how do you step out and get comfortable with this idea that you can lead? And I always tell people that, we're all creators. Everyone's calling themselves, it went from everyone being an influencer to now everyone's a creator, right? But the thing is, you can't do any of that in a vacuum. So I just always advise people to stay curious, to look for outside stimulation, make sure you have conversations with people who drive you to want to be more interested than being interesting.
Mhm.
Read, take a walk, get a dog, like all of those things that keep you interested in the world and curious, because that way you just continue to just refuel what drives you, and it makes a big difference when you have something outside of just your work or work and family. It's got to be other things that drive you. So I would just say stay curious.
Awesome. And what's the website people can go and check you guys out?
They can check us out at 10, that's the word 10, TEN, and the number 3, PR.com, 10 3PR.com.
Awesome. Easy. Yeah, I know why you spelled it now. I'm like, oh, people put
All types of combinations, right? It's the word 10 and the number 3
There you
PR
go.
tech.
I like it. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show. And if you guys enjoyed this episode, share it out with your business partner, another strategic partner. It will help them out, it'll help us out, reach more of you cool agency owners. And if there's anything we can do for you, whether it be joining our amazing community or coming to one of our agency owner events, please reach out so we can see if we are the right ones for you. If not, we'll point you in the right direction. And until next time, have a swank day. I hope you enjoyed this content. If you want more content like this, make sure you click on the link on the screen or check out your most popular podcast platform where the full episode is there. And until next time, have a swank day. What are you doing? Go check it out. Click on the link. I'll see you soon.